Hope everybody is good. I'm here to talk to you today about serving Vipassana retreat, which I recently did, and also play guitar intermittently throughout. But in case you've missed it, in the past I've made a little video talking about each of my courses that I've sat on, sitting being like meditating the whole time and practicing the technique and such. And so to support sitting, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and so that's where serving comes in. And so servers generally work in the kitchen for the most part, and cook all the food, do all the cleanup, etc. And so this past retreat, that's what I did. And you get a pretty large benefit from doing either of these two things. So that's kind of why I wanted to do it and try it out for myself. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. So the first thing that I should say, and pretty much always should be said, is that this is just my experience and not necessarily like the truth of everything. You know, it shouldn't be beyond question or anything. It's not necessarily what you would experience if put in the same situation, but this is kind of what I felt during these past 10 days. And so as the Buddha would say, ehi passiko, meaning see for yourself, come and see for yourself. So I know that I have gotten so much benefit from this technique, and ehi passiko, see for yourself, try it out, see if you get the same benefits. I think there's not a single person on the entire planet who would not benefit immensely from learning Vipassana and practicing Vipassana. But that's just my opinion. It would be maybe a different story if everyone went and did it and saw for themselves. So I kind of broke this into an outline that I put on there. So that outline I'll try to follow a bit. Basically, I'm going to start talking about the theory of Vipassana meditation, then talk about why should anybody serve and why did I want to serve. Then I'll touch on what serving is like, what my experience was, some of the things that I learned, and lastly I'll kind of talk about the future from here. And every now and again I'll say something like ehi passiko or sila samadhi panya or all these different terms, and these are all in the Pali language, which is the ancient language of northern India, which the Buddha spoke. And so that tradition has survived in a lot of ways, and so occasionally I'll use the words of the Buddha to explain a point or point out something important. But yeah, ehi passiko, come and see for yourself. Okay, so to start, I'll just tell you about some of the theory behind Vipassana meditation. And so recently I was talking to a friend, and I kind of did a poor job explaining this because I was really tired at the time. But there's essentially two kinds of meditation. And those two kinds of meditation are absorption meditation and dissolution meditation. And so the former, absorption meditation, can help you focus and develop concentration. And it can, in the higher levels of absorption meditation, it can cause some really intense feelings. But at the end of the day, it's always you're producing some mental state or another. Whereas a dissolution meditation seeks to end all mental states. It seeks to free oneself from the experience of reacting and consequentially from even being in a lot of ways. And so thus, absorption techniques of meditation cannot actually end all ego and end all suffering, whereas dissolution techniques kind of gently lead you to the place where the ego fades away and is no more, and in the process completely eradicates all suffering. So in Buddhism there's 4 noble truths, and the first noble truth is that the first noble truth is that all experience is in some way leads to dukkha, or suffering. And so this is kind of the first truth that one has to acknowledge, that when we go about our lives and we're going through all this stuff, all of these impermanent things, we're kind of ignorant of their impermanence, and so that's what leads to the suffering, which is kind of the second noble truth, that craving leads to suffering. And so craving, specifically of the sensations. So we crave, for example, a good sensation or a bad sensation. Say something feels good, we say, oh, I want that. Or say something doesn't feel good, we say, oh, I don't want that. And in both cases, we're reacting. And so specifically to the sensations, we need to stop reacting if we want to be free of the suffering. And so that's the third noble truth, which is how to secede, to cease suffering. And then the fourth noble truth is kind of the path to do that. And the Buddha said, Vedana Paccaya Sankhara. And so Paccaya is a word of causation, Vedana is the sensations, and Sankhara is the reactions. And so Vedana Paccaya Sankhara means sensations cause reactions. And so this is really important in Vipassana, because what you're doing is you're meditating on the sensations, the Vedana, without reacting to them. And so what this does is the reactions start to come to the surface, and you don't react to the reaction, you don't react to the sensation, and so then you're freed of these reactions. And so thus you're ending your ignorance, because you're no longer blindly reacting and blindly creating your own suffering. Instead, you're using the power of your awareness to consciously let go of these habits of the mind that just onward cause suffering continuously. And so there's a good analogy with starvation, actually, because you notice that, say a person stops eating, what happens is they don't die immediately, but over time their body continues to survive and get thinner and thinner, and what's happening is the old stock of food and energy that they had consumed slowly is used and gotten rid of. The same is true of sankharas. So when you stop producing new sankharas, new reactions, the old ones start to come out on the surface, and eventually they're all gone. And when they're all gone, no more reaction whatsoever, that is what you would call a liberated person, or a totally free person, because they're no longer reacting to just the sensations, they're instead just being in a very aware and non-reactive state. And this purifies the mind, thus, in the process. In the later stages of Vipassana meditation, the ego itself is dissolved. The Buddha said it's a station that one is bound to reach before enlightenment, is that you realize that all of these sensations that you've been reacting to, creating all this suffering and reaction and pain for oneself, you realize that it's all insubstantial. It all has no inherent person to it. It's not you, but it's you saying that it's you that causes the suffering. The sensations themselves, though, are impersonal and impermanent and have this quality of suffering. And so because of that, the Buddha said that the sensations had the characteristic of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Anicca, impermanence; dukkha, suffering; and anatta, insubstantiality, or no self. So that's kind of a deep dive into the theory behind this. But essentially what this technique seeks to do is to dissolve the ego by not allowing these sensations to lead to a reaction, instead just being aware of them and letting them go as they come. Now this is important to be combined. So that's kind of the aspect of equanimity. The other important aspect of this technique is actually just awareness. So you need to develop your attention to the more subtle parts of the mind to get at the deeper sensations, the deeper habits. So you need strong attention to be able to touch the more subtle parts of your mind if you want to have this good purifying effect on not just the surface level, but deeper within. yeah, it's all awareness and equanimity. Most of these habit patterns are not of the conscious mind, they're of the unconscious mind. They're at the very deep levels of the mind. So what Vipassana essentially seeks to do is to develop attention such that you unify your mind and you become more aware of the deeper parts of the mind, the subtler parts of the mind, and then you go in and you feel equanimity towards those parts of the mind, and in that way you purify those. So equanimity, the non-reaction, is what breaks the habits, but awareness is what allows us to kind of get deeper into the deeper habits, to techniques those. And most techniques of mindfulness these days kind of miss this point, and it's a really important one. So as an example, say that you become angry, and that's good. You notice the anger and you say, I'm going to take a few deep breaths, and that kind of calms you down. But what's missed is that it does nothing to change that you got angry in the first place. You won't be better off in the future necessarily just because you calmed yourself down this one time. What Vipassana essentially does is it moves you forward in time to the point where the anger is produced, where the sensation is produced rather than the reaction. And when that sensation is produced, you say, oh, anger is rising. And then you take those few deep breaths a little earlier and a little earlier, you relax into it. Eventually, the reaction itself ceases. The sankhara itself ceases, despite the sensation still being there. So, in that sense, I think Vipassana is a very good meditation technique for people to try out, because it deals with the cause rather than the effect. It doesn't just seek to make you feel better in one moment or another, and that's kind of what an absorption technique would do, or a concentration technique would do. Instead, it seeks to get rid of the part of you that says, oh, this is so bad. You want to get rid of the part that is unaccepting of the present, and rather just have a constant state of tranquility, produce a constant state of equanimity, from which you live in peace, accepting of all of these sensations as they arise. And so in that process, you're destroying your ego. And in this way, you're developing a wisdom, essentially, or panya, as the Buddha called it. And so the way this works is essentially you start with sila, that leads to samadhi, which leads to panya. Sila is morality or lifestyle, and so from a good, healthy lifestyle, over time, you're bound to develop concentration or mastery over the mind, which is samadhi. And once you have mastery over the mind and concentration, you can develop panya, wisdom. And so this is kind of the essence of the Buddha's teaching. It's actually so simple. Start by just acting well, behaving well, performing wholesome activities and not performing unwholesome activities. Over time, as long as you are doing that, you are gaining power to concentrate and you are gaining control over yourself, which is samadhi. And then once you exercise that control and keep up that good mastery over the mind, it leads to wisdom. And so that's wisdom into, for example, the nature of impermanence, or the nature of suffering, or the nature of insubstantiality. So anicca, dukkha, anatta. And as a whole, that's kind of what produces the peaceful feelings that you have within as a result of this. And this is sort of why so many meditators become sort of like saintly people, because your meditation practice won't survive if you don't start with wholesome activity, a good sila. Without sila, you can have no samadhi. Without a healthy lifestyle, you can have no concentration. And without concentration, you can have no wisdom. So my advice for people who are looking to start meditating generally is that they should start with the lifestyle, the sila, the morality. And the reason for that is you won't be able to focus unless you actually look at your behavior and see how it's affecting you. And so what sila specifically the Buddha suggested 5 precepts. Don't kill, don't steal, don't commit any sexual misconduct, don't lie, that's a really big one, and don't use any drugs or intoxicants. Don't kill and don't steal, pretty easy to follow, because you would have to try pretty hard to do that. You're not just going to kill someone by accident, you know? Same with stealing. You're not just going to steal something by accident. But a lot of people are pretty unconscious about their sexual lives, and they just kind of follow where the sensations lead. And so that can lead to kind of unhealthy habits there, which will affect your concentration. You know, that's, some people probably don't pay attention to that, but you know, it will. Same with lying. Lying is actually the most common way that we break morality, and the Buddha acknowledged this. It's really hard not to lie. In fact, I saw a TED Talk once where the author of this book was, I think the book was called Lie Spotting or something. She said that within a few minutes of meeting someone, within a few minutes of meeting someone new for the first time, you will have lied to them at least 3 times. And it's just crazy how often we do this. And so we need to hold ourselves kind of to a higher standard if we wish to be able to live as saintly people and live as good people. And so then the question becomes, you know, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to, you know, stop producing all these, stop having all these habits? And, you know, you're your own master here. But I think we do all these things out of ignorance, and so once you start paying attention to them is when you can start working with them and kind of healing yourself from them. We're on this circle that just produces negativity and pain and suffering over and over again. And so once we start realizing that, oh, you know, I shouldn't do that thing that causes me to suffer, that's when we can start to make progress and lead to our own actual growth. And the 5th precept, that we should take no intoxicants of any kind, that's a really relevant one for me, actually. I just celebrated 1 year without consuming any marijuana, which over the past, I don't know, 6 or 7 years was like kind of a problem for me. And it led to all sorts of mental health things. And so then I kind of started cutting back on it, and you know, now I celebrated a year without it. And it was a great year. And there's all sorts of other things like that. You know, once we consciously take our happiness into our own hands, and begin to take control over these habits that we've been partaking in, and say, no, this is not a good idea. Once we do that, we're practicing good sila, and from that we gain concentration. From that we gain the ability to actually be aware of like the sensations as they're occurring. So for example, any recovering drug or alcohol addict knows that, you know, sometimes you feel cravings. And so by setting a strong determination not to drink, you're bound to observe these cravings, and you're bound to see them rise, and then you're also bound to see them fall if you succeed in you know, not giving in. And so what this means is you're observing the impermanence of the sensation, and from that you're gaining the wisdom into that impermanence. So that's kind of how sila produces concentration, how living a healthy lifestyle, a good lifestyle, good morality, leads to good concentration. And from concentration, that's the awareness that I was mentioning before, which allows one to probe oneself on the deeper levels of the mind. When one does this at the deeper levels of the mind, observing sensations rising and falling, and observing the characteristic of impermanence, one gains the wisdom into that impermanence. That all sensations are impermanent, all sensations lead to suffering should we react to them, and all sensations are insubstantial. No I, no me, no ego. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to follow my notes. I don't really pay much attention to my notes. They're, yeah. Oh, and one other point here before I start moving on. Once you've developed all three, sila, samadhi, and panya, lifestyle, concentration, and wisdom, they begin to support each other. So if you're very wise, it will help you live a healthier lifestyle, which will help you concentrate better. If you're very concentrated, it will help you, become wise, and it will also help you to live a healthier lifestyle. So if you feel that you have no concentration and no wisdom, again, you should start with just, let's try to be healthy. Let's try to live a healthy lifestyle. Set that intention to live better, essentially. Live with better morality, and live healthier. And over time, the longer that you hold that intention, the more concentration you'll gain, and the more wisdom that you'll gain from that. So these three things support each other, and all three are very important in that sense. And eventually, well, before I say that, and once you gain this wisdom, this acknowledgement that everything changes, that every reaction leads to suffering, that everything is insubstantial and has nothing to do with me, the more wisdom you gain into this, the more you come out of your own suffering. You come out of the old habit pattern of the mind to react all the time, and instead just observe peacefully with equanimity and in tranquility. And so one comes out of their own suffering and begins to feel so happy. And so as this wisdom grows, you kind of gain the desire to want others to come out of their suffering, such that we all might live happily together. You eventually sort of realize that as we are all connected in this world, it's almost a cliche, but it's very true. My well-being makes me want your well-being, and your well-being makes you want my well-being, and also lots of other people's well-beings. And so the more that one kind of becomes happiness, the more one desires the happier that one becomes, the more one desires the happiness of others as well. So that we can end this ignorance, so that we can end these habits of craving and clinging and reaction, and instead we'll all be better off and live in harmony. And so that leads me to the next point, which is why serve. And so I've gone on 2 10-day courses as a meditator, and from those 2 courses I've gained so much benefit. I've gained a lot of wisdom and peace and tranquility, and so I keep up a daily practice pretty well. I wasn't doing a daily practice of Vipassana going into this retreat, but rather just Anapana concentration, and I would meditate in the morning and in the evening, and it was a really good it was a really good thing for me. I was practicing samadhi, and to a large extent I was practicing sila for the past year or so, but without practicing Vipassana, I was kind of losing that piece of panya, the wisdom. That was tangential though, so I should follow my notes. Yes. So why serve though? So it was an acknowledgement that I had gotten so much from these courses, and so serving is kind of a way to pay it forward. I have gotten so much benefit, and I want to pass that benefit on to others. Again, Vipassana is a technique of dissolution, so it's all about kind of destroying your ego. And so in my life, I've noticed this good sila making me happier, specifically in sila regarding sobriety and relationships and non-attachment, and those are the things I have written down here. I should probably follow this because I'm getting so disorganized. This is why I wrote my notes. But yeah, so in the past year or so, I noticed myself becoming a lot happier by practicing sobriety and by practicing healthy relationships with appropriate boundaries and trying to forgive people, and non-attachment is a really big one for me too, because letting others be as they are allows me to be as I am. And so I used to get so worked up over what other people would do, and now I'm just like, no, do your thing. I'm going to do mine. And I hope that other people respect that for me, but in case they don't, I'm going to do it anyway. You know, I've always kind of done my thing, and I would like to think that I've always kind of let others do theirs as well. So these things have made me happier. And so by acknowledging this and recognizing this, you kind of notice that I noticed that I was responsible for all of my own negativity and my own misery. So lots of examples there, but I'll come back to that in a second, actually. There were two anecdotes that I wanted to share, though. So I went on my last Vipassana course in August of 2019, so about 5 months ago. And so at the end of the course, I was talking to all these people who had served, and they were telling me, oh, it's so good, it's so different. If you're interested, you should try volunteering to help clean up when the course is over. And so specifically in the kitchen, they recommended. So I volunteered to help in the kitchen, and I volunteered to clean the bathrooms. And when I got to the kitchen, they said, oh, we need help cleaning the bathrooms. So I didn't end up really cleaning the kitchen, I just ended up cleaning the bathrooms. But, you know, here I am at the end of a 10-day course with a very pure, you know, good volition-filled mind. Here I am cleaning these toilets, just so happy. I'm thinking to myself, oh, may this toilet, you know, may it be clean for the next person to receive this technique and to practice Dhamma, the teaching. And, you know, may the next person grow in Dhamma, may they be happy. And, you know, here I am literally scrubbing toilets and just so full of joy. And that's kind of serving in a nutshell. It's like my efforts going towards someone else's efforts makes me very happy. Specifically towards their spiritual progress and not towards anything material. It's totally immaterial. So it, you know, it brought me so much joy to like clean toilets and do this and that, you know, clean pots and pans on this course, because it's not about me. The other anecdote I wanted to share was that sometime around November, I think it must have been, I was just driving along, and you know, I'm a pretty reflective person, and I was reflecting on, you know, what's missing in a way? Like, why do I feel the way that I feel? I was a little upset at the time. I'm very often kind of all over the place, but I was reflecting on this idea, though, that, you know, in so many ways I just expect others to serve my goals. And it occurred to me that, you know, maybe I should serve other people's goals so that I'm not so attached to my own. You know, why should everyone want to help me if I don't do anything to help them? You know, something's obviously not right there. And so that made me really want to serve, because I recognized how selfish I can be, and how everyone can be, I guess, but specifically this selfishness that I had been practicing. And it made me really want to help other people, because, again, it's like I can't be happy just in my own isolated little sphere if everyone gives me what I want and then they are unhappy. If I'm going to be happy, it's because we're all happy together. And this is also why you should serve and pay it forward, because, you know, it's not just about one person being happy, it's about everyone being happy. It's about dissolving this one person that thinks it's one person. It's about dissolving this ego, and moving towards a greater group harmony. So, you know, I want anybody watching this to benefit from it. That's why I'm doing this, of course. It gives me a lot of joy to think that, you know, maybe that effect will happen. I want to put my efforts towards all of us growing together. It's not just about me. And I hope that's clear, and I hope that comes across. So if just one person, or even if nobody, becomes interested in the technique and, you know, goes on a retreat, or even just thinks about going on a retreat, then I will be happy to have made this, you know, because it's not just about me. I want necessarily the Vipassana path, but just any path towards happiness and harmony and growth. Granted, I have found that Vipassana is a very good way to do that, but anyway, sorry. I got lost on a tangent. On that last course that I mentioned, one guy told me on the last day when you can talk, one guy told me that there's two modes in life, essentially. You serve yourself and you serve other people, and that you need to master both of these modes. You can't just know how to serve yourself and not know how to serve others. You can't just know how to serve others and not serve yourself. You need to know how to grow and help grow everything around you. And then there's 10 qualities that going on courses you develop, and those qualities are called parami, or perfections of the Buddha. And so in the Buddha's language, I'm going to see if I can name all of them without looking at it. There's dana, generosity. There's sila, morality, lifestyle. Khanti, which is patience or tolerance. Panya, wisdom. Nekama, renunciation. Let me see, what else? Adhitan, which is strong determination. Metta, which is compassion. Upekkha, which is equanimity. Sakka, which is honesty or truthfulness. And which one am I forgetting? What is it? Oh, and virya, which is effort. And so generosity, effort, renunciation, morality, honesty, tolerance / patience, wisdom, strong determination, selfless love / compassion, and equanimity. And so those are the 10 qualities that one must perfect if they would like to become a saintly or enlightened person. Or just in general, a very happy person, like, they're all good qualities, of course, and they all support each other. So if you're very good at, for example, if you have very strong virya, which is effort, you're going to put in a lot of efforts, and out of those efforts you'll get adhitan and metta and khanti and all these other things. Two of the more interesting ones are dana and nekama, which are sort of the relation to the material world. Dana, which is generosity, and nekama, which is renunciation. And so these probably require the most comment. I don't want to talk too much about these, but they're the things that you're working on by going on a retreat like this. And so the relation to the material world expressed through dana and nekama. So generosity is the acknowledgement that this work that I do is not just for myself alone, and you pay it forward. You can do this materially by donating, or you can do it by giving time, by serving. And so serving is thus kind of a form of practicing generosity, because you're offering all of your efforts and all of your time and attention to the efforts of others. Serving is entirely for the students. You're feeding people, you're cleaning up after them, you're trying to let them have a really good course and do kind of the deep work deep in their hearts to purify themselves. And of course you're practicing as well, but again, all of your efforts are going towards someone else's efforts. It's not about you, but much the opposite. It's about kind of putting your intentions for someone else instead of this habit that you've always practiced of putting your intentions only for yourself. So that's generosity. Nekama is renunciation. So renunciation specifically of this me kind of material lifestyle. Vipassana is in many ways a technique for householders, for working people. And so the habit of working people is, I make all this money and it all goes to me. I get what I work for. But if you think about it though, that's not what I've been talking about, because it's so selfish. It's all for me and not for anyone else. And of what benefit is that to the community? Sure, I mean, it's good to be in a position where you can help people and such. I don't dispute that. But you actually need to do the work and to do the help if you want to actually have that good impact on people. And then these other ones, the other ones that are really relevant to serving, I would say Saka. So when you sit a course, you can't talk because it's all very introspective. You can't even look at other people, and so that's what produces the meditative atmosphere. Everyone is very in their own world, and you practice honesty by literally not saying anything. Now, when you serve a course, you're working in the kitchen. You're working as part of a big team, and so you're allowed to talk. And so this perfection of Saka, which is honesty or truthfulness, you get an opportunity to practice that because you will be talking to people and you want to say only the truth, and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, or whatever. You want to practice honesty. And so noble speech, as it's called, is much more difficult than noble silence. It's easy not to lie if you can't say anything, but if you can say things, you realize that maybe that was only 90% true, or maybe that was only 60% true, or maybe there was some truth to that, but not very much, and so on and so forth. So saying nothing but the truth, 100% true, is a practice for sure. But it's good to be aware of what you're saying and to acknowledge, oh, when I said that thing earlier, I guess that wasn't fully, So in that sense, you gain awareness into your truthfulness. Another one is Kanti Parami, which is tolerance. So, you're doing your job and everyone else is doing their job, and you're working as hard as you can work, and you have to realize that they're working as hard as they can work, even if it doesn't seem like they are, and even if, they're not doing a good job or whatever. Kanti Parami, which is tolerance. You should exercise this tolerance and practice this tolerance towards others if you wish to grow in peace and equanimity. And metta is one that you practice a lot. Metta is loving kindness or compassion, selfless love. And so this is a very important quality to develop because, again, it's the realization that anything that benefits me alone does not benefit everyone. Well, obviously. But you strive to benefit everyone. You strive to benefit the others around you. And you recognize that their happiness becomes your happiness. So this is kind of the meaning of compassion. It's wanting others to be happy by the acknowledgement that should others become happy, I myself will become happier. And in that sense, you can be selfish. You can work so hard for other people, so selfishly, because none of your efforts are going towards yourself. If you work so hard for everyone else around you, that is, in a way, being selfish, because you know it will come back to you. But it's also, in a way, not selfish, because you're not working for yourself. So that level of selfishness is accepted, and it's actually encouraged. It's be selfish. It's the teacher says, be selfish, work hard for other people, such that you may have greater joy. Okay, and I'm getting lost on all sorts of tangents again. But those are the part of me. And so those are what you work on as a server, as a meditator, as a teacher, should you become a teacher in this technique. And everyone is practicing the same qualities for those 10 days. They naturally arise as you meditate and live, Did I say the other thing I wanted to say? Yeah, okay. In Buddhism, there's 3 things that are really important. It's called the triple gem. The Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. The Buddha, I think everyone kind of knows what the Buddha is. Well, actually, maybe not. The Buddha was an enlightened person, yes. But to say that, I take refuge in Buddha, you're not taking refuge in some guy 2,500 years ago who did all this stuff. what you're doing is you're taking refuge in the quality of enlightenment, the idea that anyone can become enlightened, that anyone can become free and liberated, and that I too can do that. You're taking refuge in the quality of enlightenment that exists in yourself and in all things. So, it's going to sound funny, but you could say that this chair is Buddha. You could say that the guitar is Buddha, that the notes are Buddha, that I am Buddha, that everyone is Buddha. And you wouldn't be wrong. It's almost, the parallel in monotheism is like, this chair is also God. I am also God. This wall is also God. It's the recognition that this quality of being that everything has the quality of enlightenment in it. The Dhamma is the teaching of Buddha, the way, the natural law, the universal law, that all things can become enlightened should they practice this technique and do all these things that I've been talking about, developing these parami, sila, samadhi, panya, sila leading to samadhi, leading to panya, etc. Now the Sangha, and this is the one I wanted to talk about, the Sangha is the community of holy people, the community of saintly, noble people. And so there's a story where one of the Buddha's disciples, Ananda, comes to the Buddha and he says, Buddha, sir, I think that friends are half of the spiritual life. And he's recognized that the happiness of others comes back to himself. He's recognized that the happiness of others matters for his own happiness. And the Buddha says, no, my friend, friends are the entirety of the spiritual life. And so this is the importance of Sangha, of community. If everyone around you is living a holy lifestyle, a happy lifestyle, then you too will want to join in that discipline and in that joy and in that service of others that everyone around you is exemplifying. And there's a huge sociological side note to be made here, which is that the people who you surround yourself become the person that you are. And that's, just observed everywhere in sociology. The people who you surround yourself allow you to be who you are, but you also kind of become who they are, and you become the person who you are when you're around them. It's kind of a weird mental game to play, but hopefully the point is clear. So yeah, one must serve others, but one must also surround oneself with, noble, hardworking, disciplined, loving people. And this greatly strengthens your own efforts to be that way. And so then, say that you're practicing all those qualities, then the people around you will similarly, they'll have the exact same reciprocal effect. By you practicing all these qualities of joy and happiness and service, those around you will want to do so more. And so this is why the friends are the entirety of the spiritual life. You fit into a community that benefits from you doing this, and you benefit from the community doing this. So, it's almost a side note, and I don't know. On this topic of why serve, one of the things that you practice is living in a sangha, of living in a community of noble, serving people. And it's really nice in that sense, because you realize it's a group effort. It's not just one or the other person. And I've kind of been looking for that sort of community for quite some time. I've been blessed with really good friends and such, but I don't know many people who deeply understand me on a spiritual level, who practice what I practice and understand that practice. And so it was really great to be alongside other people who do understand that. In that sense, spirituality can be a pretty lonely path, because you're taking all this time and effort for yourself, for the benefit of others, but through yourself. And it's challenging when other people are like, they just don't get it. They like, why meditate? Well, there's actually a lot of good reasons, but unless you do it, you won't experience them. So Ehipassiko, go and see for yourself. Try meditating, and these things don't happen overnight, but over a lot of time and effort, I'm a totally different person than not even a year ago. And the year before that, even more different. And like 10 years ago, I would not even recognize myself. And it's all for the better, for sure. I mean, I'm so much more aware of the changing nature of everything, and I'm so much less attached, and I'm creating so much less misery for myself by reacting to all these things that don't matter. And so I'm grateful for that. And so I want everyone around me to experience that as well. But unless they do, it's like there's no the purpose is not served, You can hear me talk about this all day, but if it doesn't change anything about how you see the world, or if you don't feel any more inclined to meditate, or any of that, then the purpose is not served. You won't be better off. So I hope that this inspires people on some level or another. But at the end of the day, like, I can offer only what I have experienced. You have to see for yourself. Ehipassiko, come and see for yourself. And last note about why serve is that it greatly strengthens one's own practice. So being able to talk and, you don't meditate all day as you would when you sit on a course. You only meditate for you meditate for a minimum of 3 hours a day. But I was finding I would meditate around 5 hours a day, more or less. And so this is much closer to a real world scenario, meaning, well, let me back up and say the recommended amount of practice for Vipassana meditators is 2 hours a day. So 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. And so on the course, you're meditating, like 3 to 5 hours, let's say, every day, which is still more than you would at home. But the point is, you're living, you're working, you're talking to people and all that, and then you're going and meditating. And so what you find, and I'll come to my experience in a bit, is the things that had come up as you were going about your work and your daily life begin to come out in the meditation, and you're purified of them, and you feel so good after you meditate. And then, you're working, and you get a little agitated, and you get a little, upset at someone and for doing such and such, and so on and so forth. But then you go and meditate again, and then you're, so happy, so calm, so peaceful. And you do this over and over again. And so it's very much like the real world in that sense, because, I meditate now an hour in the morning, I go about my day. Some things are good that happen, some things are bad that happen, Then in the evening I meditate again, and I'm purified of those reactions, more or less. That's what we practice. It's a practice. It's not like a one and done thing, like, I meditated, I'm going to sleep well tonight. I mean, it helps me sleep very well, but that's not to say that every meditation is a strong meditation. Some nights it's really hard to focus, and that happens, but in any case, serving helps one develop one's own practice for the real world. Okay, now that leads me to the next part of our little talk, which is what serving is like. So I'll touch briefly on some of the technical differences between sitting and serving, which I kind of just briefly mentioned. And then I'll talk about some of the things I was doing and feeling and such. So I mentioned that you meditate less. So as a sitter on the course, as a meditator on the course, you meditate around 11 to 12 hours a day. So it's pretty much all you do. You just meditate and eat and sleep. That's about it. Occasionally you go for a little walk, and that's kind of it. As a server, you're working in the kitchen, you're talking to other people as part of a team in the kitchen, and you're meditating around maybe 4 hours a day. Now, all the servers work in the kitchen with the exception of the course manager, who is kind of the person that the students go to. So the course manager, for example, say you don't have any toothpaste. the students, they've taken a vow of silence to each other, but you can go to the course manager and say, hey, I need some toothpaste. And then the course manager will get you some toothpaste. So I wasn't the course manager. I was working in the kitchen. But on a couple occasions, students did approach me because they knew I was a server. And they asked me, like, hey, could you get me, like, this water bottle or that thing from the kitchen? And it's like such a stressful experience because these are the people who I'm working for and I want them to be well off and stuff. And there's a moment of hesitation, like, I need to do this perfectly, because, like, they need to, if they need that water bottle, they need to get that water bottle. That is my job. That is why I'm here. But they're not really supposed to come to me because it's so stressful in that sense. You should be working entirely behind the scenes. They shouldn't even know who you are in some senses because, again, it's an egoless service. So anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. All the other people work in the kitchen, and so there were like 10 full-time servers on the course, people who were there the whole 10 days. We had a couple part-time servers, so people would come for 2 or 3 days at a time. But one guy is the kitchen manager, and he kind of runs the show. He's looking at, we need this many pounds of onions chopped, and we need this many pounds of zucchini, and at 10:32, this should go in the oven at this temperature for this long. And so then he directs people to do all these things. He's kind of like the organizational guy. And then everyone else kind of just does what they're told, pretty much. But we also did have specific roles. So some people are like cooks, essentially. I mean, everyone cooks, but I cooked like only a little bit. My primary job was some of the cleanup. So I was the pots and pans guy. So the kitchen was a commercial kitchen, and I'll come back to that in a second. It's this big thing, and there's a dishwasher in the corner, sanitizer. I don't know if anyone has ever worked in a restaurant and seen one of these things, but it's this big thing. You put all this stuff on a tray, you put it in, you close the doors, and it washes it, and it's, really hot, and it's spraying water inside the thing. And then it's all clean, you open it up, you push it out, you put in another one. That's not what I was doing. I was doing what's called the triple sink. So you have 3 sinks. The first sink is just like a rinse, you get all the particles and stuff off, maybe use some soap. The second sink is hot water to kind of rinse in the hot water to kill any bacteria or whatever. And then the last sink is a dilute, very, very dilute bleach kind of water, and so that sanitizes. And so the bigger stuff that doesn't fit in the dishwasher would come to me, the big pots and pans and stuff. I'd clean them off, put them through the hot water, and then sanitize them. And it's so funny because I'm sure people could like envision that. It probably doesn't seem like an important detail, but that's what I was doing for like 10 days, and it was actually it was quite fun. An example meal, so everyday breakfast is at 6:30 sharp, and lunch is at 11 o'clock sharp, and then in the evening at 5 p.m. sharp, there's fruit for the new students, and there's tea for the old students and the new students. And so it's our job to make sure that operation is ready to go in its entirety at 6:30 sharp or at 11 a.m. sharp. So that means that for an example meal, the dining room has to be set up. All of the food has to be cooked. After a meal, all of the stuff has to be cleaned, and then every day we would clean and mop either the kitchen or the dining rooms. We would alternate those. And so it's a big group effort to get all this stuff done. And so that's kind of what we're doing. And to give some perspective, each meal is prepped for, we prepped for around 85 people we would cook for. And that's a lot of people, that's a lot of food. And so if we ever didn't make enough, they just get ours because we need to make sure that they have enough food. The idea is that we want to present an image of abundance, which sounds kind of like a Potemkin village, as one of my fellow servers mentioned, which is kind of funny to think about. But the point is, the student should always feel like there's more if they want more. They should always feel like there's plenty of food for everyone, and that sort of thing. Now there's a few other jobs that we add, which is that I also did laundry for everyone, the kitchen laundry, that is. So we have rags and dishcloths and all that stuff, and every day I would put in the laundry and do the laundry and put it back. The other one that I would do was I would ring the bell at mealtime. So at 11 o'clock sharp, lunch is ready. I open the door of the dining hall and I ring the bell. And maybe it sounds silly, or maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But that bell is how the students know, okay, lunch is ready. And it's always, every single day at 11 o'clock sharp, and it should not be a second later, and it should not be a second earlier. Sometimes they're waiting out there trying to get in before it's time, but they should be meditating. But, so they 11 o'clock sharp and 6:30 sharp for breakfast, and everything has to be done and ready at those times. And it probably seems like such a small thing, but when you're there, it certainly does not. It's quite a responsibility, because those students are going to hear that bell, and I want these students to progress. I want them to grow in this meditation. So how I ring the bell matters, So I made sure to take a deep breath every time I would ring the bell, because it's not even a bell; it's a gong. And so what you do is you're bang. Yeah. And so the first day I did it, I was like, oh crap, I rang it too loud for inside, and I didn't ring it loud enough for outside. And so I was like, oh, I failed, stupid Andrew. But then I realized, no, I just need to approach this mindfully, and I'll get it right every time. How the volition, here's the point, the volition that I have approaching the ringing of this bell really does matter. And that's true of all of the things that the servers do. How the volition that you have chopping the carrots, or washing the pots and pans, it does matter. You should do it all with good volition to serve others. You should do it all with this, with love, and with compassion, and with the thought that, may these people eat from these plates and, grow. If you're angry as you're doing this, if you're like, screw it, I'm just gonna bang on the bell, or or if you're like chopping stuff and you're like, I don't care, I'm angry right now, I'm just gonna chop it however and do a bad job. If you don't care, then you're gonna get in someone's way. You're gonna produce negativity for someone else. So the most important thing is to have good volition for yourself, and then that transfers to other people. And so I'll come back to it, but this beautiful line arose in my head midway through the retreat, which is that the kitchen is sacred and you can taste the love. You can taste the feeling that is put into the food. You absolutely can. And because you can feel it. You can feel it in a room, you can feel it in everything that human hands have touched. There's some quality to how those things have been touched that you can sense on, in a lot of cases, a very subconscious level, in a few cases, a very conscious level. And it matters, So if you're trying to serve others, how you touch things, how you interact with things does really matter. The volition that you have approaching the worlds is what you're working with and what you're developing, such that others may grow. And it's a very big group effort. So again, one guy is kind of organizational head, the kitchen manager. Everyone else is kind of just doing their thing. And the lovely thing is, I don't know if anyone had any experience whatsoever doing what we were doing. This is okay, though, because everything that you have to do is pretty clearly laid out in notes. For example, recipes are very clear. Like, if you want to cook for this many people, you need this many pounds of this. And if you want to cook for this many people, the recipes change based on how much you want to cook. There's also notes in the recipes like cook until, cook for 15 minutes, then toss and add some oil, that sort of thing. or chop into bite-sized pieces, or chop into 1-inch pieces, or 2-inch pieces, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty clear what you have to do. It is learn as you go, but you learn pretty quick that way. Now, it is a commercial kitchen. It's a big operating kitchen, and that's really fun to work in if you ever get a chance, because I would love to have that kind of kitchen in my house, you know, like everything you could possibly imagine needing in a kitchen was in that kitchen. It's so great. But as a commercial kitchen, though, it's FDA regulated and inspected at random. So it's really important that everyone's doing their job correctly, which, you know, can become probably an issue since no one has any experience. But that's why it needs to be very clear how to do everything. And, you know, we didn't get any surprise inspections or anything while we were there, obviously, but, well, maybe not obviously, but it is a possibility. And that kitchen needs to operate for those students to eat, you know, 6:30, 11, 5 o'clock. So, so you need to do it well, essentially. Generally speaking, the team had just enough time to like prep a meal and clean up afterwards, but we didn't have much extra time. There wasn't a lot of dilly-dallying around. Occasionally you would finish a job and say, what can I do? And you would have something to do, and if you didn't get both things done, then like we would be behind. There were some kind of high and low activity points most days, and our kitchen manager did a really good job organizing everyone to get ahead. So we would always be about a day ahead on the chopping vegetables and that sort of thing. So then the day would come when we would cook them, and everything's already chopped, and we just put it in and cook it. I don't know if that sounds like a big deal or not, but you got to realize, you know, chop 30 pounds of potatoes. You know, skin and chop 30 pounds of potatoes. That takes a long time. So, you know, it was important to get ahead on a lot of that stuff. And that's just one ingredient. You know, a lot of these recipes are pretty elaborate, and the food we made was so good, too. So we had just enough time, but not extra. And when things would occasionally, this only happened maybe once or twice, but occasionally things were just a little bit behind, and, you know, tensions really rose in those times. Working with others, you can generate a lot of tension as well. This is good for those paramis that I mentioned before. So kanti, tolerance, virya, effort, metta, loving kindness or compassion, sakka, truthfulness, and dhamma, generosity. Specifically, metta is actually really good. When tensions arise, when conflicts arise, and then they're resolved, there's a lot of compassion that is generated. It's interesting to think about, because I think more compassion is generated when a tension arises and is resolved than if no tension arose in the first place. And so that was an interesting thing to observe during these 10 days. Now, a lot of these tensions kind of get let out in the meditation, which I briefly mentioned before. It's this real-life application of practice. Say you get so angry at someone for, you know, chopping this carrot one way and not another way, or for being lazy. Well, you know, because again, you're working as hard as you can. You really have to respect that other people are as well. And so these tensions tend to come out in the meditation. You get so worked up about it, but then you go meditate and you realize, I did not need to be worked up about this. One thing I noticed is that rest is much more important as a server than it is as a student. And I'll come back to that. The other thing that is different for servers and sitters or meditators is at the very end of the day you practice metta or compassion meditation. And so what essentially you do is you seek forgiveness from others, you forgive anyone who is, I seek forgiveness for anyone that I might have harmed, and I forgive anyone that might have harmed me. then you say, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may I be liberated. May the students be peaceful, be happy, be liberated. May the workers on the course, the other servers and the teachers, may we all be happy, be well, and be liberated. May all the beings, visible and invisible, at the meditation center be happy, be well, be liberated. And may all beings be happy, be well, and be liberated. And so you're practicing relaxing into these feelings of compassion for others. Many people I know who have practiced with are at least somewhat familiar with loving kindness practice. And it's interesting because sometimes you really feel it deeply and sometimes it's like a little less. On this course I developed so much compassion, actually. I felt it all quite deeply. And I think that's another reason that one of the benefits of serving is you generate so much compassion for other people. Because again, you realize the central point here though, you realize that serving others is serving yourself. You realize that the happiness of others is your own happiness. And you realize that how you approach this whole thing, even though none of your efforts go directly towards yourself, how you approach those efforts still really, really matters. The volition that you have really, really matters. And the better volition you have, may all beings grow, may all beings be happy. The more you realize this, the more you realize that none of this is about me, and that it's all just, I will be happier if I do a good job nonetheless, such that others may be happy. And that leads me to the next part of our talk, which is my experience. This has already been over an hour, I think, and I have about 10 more little pages of notes, but I'll try to go pretty quickly. I don't think this will take too long. I appreciate people for bearing with me. I feel like I can be really long-winded, and I apologize for that. I'm just going to talk briefly about my own experience, and then start wrapping things up a bit. Now, I'll probably talk about this chronologically. When I've done the other videos talking about my courses, I've said, like, day 1, this is what I was feeling. Day 2, this is what I was feeling, and so on and so forth. It doesn't really make sense to do that for serving because the days were very similar in a lot of ways, but certain feelings did arise on particular days that are worth mentioning. So I'm going to focus on the details, those feelings, and not just like, this is how day 3 was. So the first 2 days, I had made a strong determination to just work very, very hard, put forth a lot of effort. In the past I've sat on 2 courses, and I've realized that for these 10 days that I am here, I'm going to get the most benefit if I work literally as hard as I possibly can. You get out what you put in, essentially. And once you realize that, it makes you want to work really hard, which is great. It's fun. It pushes you to be better. It pushes you just in general. And so on those past 2 courses, I would notice myself get tired at some times, and then I would take a nap. And when I would wake up, I would feel so groggy, like drowsy, like, which planet am I on? Because when you're sitting on a course, you're meditating like 11 hours a day, your mind is always at rest. So if you take a nap, you're just going to get more tired. Now, when you're serving a course, I thought it would be the same. So I was like, I'm not going to take any naps because it will make me more tired. And so those first 2 days, I'll come back to it. One of the guys, let me just say, I don't regret that, because I think that sleeping a lot is like totally missing the point. And it will mess up your sleep schedule too. One of the other servers had the most bizarre sleep schedule, because whenever he would get tired, he would take a nap. And then he wouldn't be tired at night, and he'd be up all night. And then he'd be tired the next day and take a nap. And then he, naps all day, and then next night he's up all night. It's like, you have to recognize that this will happen if you let it, and you have to just push through and stay awake. And within about two days, my sleep schedule was fantastic. I was sleeping so well at night. I had energy all day, etc. And so I'm glad that I don't take naps. I also thought I would get the most out of it if I meditated as much as possible. So whenever I wasn't working, I would want to go meditate. And this is just those first couple days. So I went to the morning sit from 4:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. And that was it was fine. But then, so I was working very hard those first 2 days. In the evening of the second day, I noticed myself, I'm washing a pot or whatever, and I noticed myself curse to myself. I say this, stupid pot or whatever. And I go, I haven't felt that much negativity in a while. And so then it just all came and hit me over the next hour of work. I was just getting hit by more and more negativity, and it was bad. I started generating a lot of negativity. And so I'm glad that I noticed this, because the other days I then resolved to hey, no new negativity. That's a big thing on these retreats. You don't want to generate any new negativity. You're there to remove all old negativity, and that can only happen if you do not generate any new negativity. So that wasn't fun when I started generating new negativity, but I'm glad that I noticed it, and I was trying to stop myself so bad. I was like, Andrew, stop, you're on this chain reaction or whatever, and just it's going and going and going, and it's just bad for you. So I wanted to regain equanimity, but I didn't really know how, until eventually work ended and meditation started. And so then with this meditation came this big relaxation, and I regained my equanimity, thankfully. So then day 3, I decided to meet with the teacher, and I asked him about generating negativity like that, and he said, make sure that you rest, or make sure that at the very least you lie down for a little bit in the afternoon. From 1 to 2:30, the servers are on break, essentially, and pretty much everyone just goes and takes a nap. And again, I didn't want to take naps because I thought it would make me more tired, but then the teacher said, no, when I serve, I need so much rest. I need to, at the very least, he said, I know for a fact that I need to lie down for 10 minutes in the afternoon. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. I'll try that. I think that second night when I generated so much negativity, I was just really tired because I hadn't given myself any rest. And I was like, I'm going to work as hard as possible and not rest at all, and that'll be how I get the most out of this. I was very surprised to find that, you do need a little bit of rest to keep your mind pure, to keep your intentions pure. Otherwise, you're just going to get so agitated. From the third day onward, I would lie down in the afternoon, and I would meditate lying down and try to focus on the breath, moving the attention around the body and such. And I began to fall asleep and take very short naps. And this is something that I've actually done a lot over the years. I love just a 10-minute nap. I get to the point of falling asleep, bam, I'm awake and so refreshed. The mind just goes, I'm turning off. And then the second that it hits off, it pops right back up and ready to go. That's the best kind of nap. And so I would do that just about every day. Things were pretty good and normal, kind of routine for most of the middle days of the course. So from days 3 to 6 or 3 to 7, it was kind of business as usual. I was really enjoying my job. I was really getting a lot out of it, generating a lot of compassion, generating a lot of equanimity and tolerance, and it was really good. On day 3, the kitchen manager said, hey, if anyone has any extra time, we have all these old bananas. So, if you want to make a banana bread. And so I had some extra time on day 3, and I was like, yeah, I'll make that banana bread. And it was really nice to bake the thing, and came out so good. And so then we served it as an extra dessert for the students, and they really liked it, and we really liked it. And it was very good. It was all very good. One of the interesting feelings was on day 4. So the first 3 days of a retreat, the students are meditating Anapana meditation, which is a single point of focus on the breath. on day 4, and so that's to develop concentration and kind of develop awareness. And then on day 4, with that awareness, they begin to move the point of focus in Vipassana meditation. And so they receive the instructions on how to practice Vipassana meditation. So this is a really big day. It's a really important day because for the majority of these students, this is the first time they're ever hearing, this is how you practice Vipassana. Which is, just me saying that, I'm thinking to myself, this is how you free yourself. This is how you liberate yourself. This technique is going to change so many of these people. And this is the first time that they're ever hearing it. So there's these long, detailed instructions on how to do it. And the servers go to that as well. It's, go get refreshed in the technique. Go be there for all of these people to receive this technique, these instructions. And so the feeling that I had after that is going to be hard to describe. What stands out to me, well, first of all, I should say I became pretty overwhelmed. But what stands out to me is towards the end of the instructions, the teacher, Goenkaji, says, "May wisdom arise. May wisdom arise." And I'm not going to get his words exactly right, but may all sensations turn into wisdom. And I'm just reflecting on the magnitude of that. May all of this pain and may all of this life, may it all just turn into wisdom. It's so cosmic. It's so just huge. And the beauty of it too is all of the sensations are anicca, they're all impermanent. It could be said that impermanence is the object of meditation in Vipassana meditation. You're observing the changing nature of everything, and you're meditating on that. And all of these things that appear, your goal is to convert them all into wisdom. Sorry, I'm just going to hit the low power mode. Boop. Got a little notification thingy. And so that really overwhelmed me, just because I was a combination of overjoyed, but also just so, existentially, compressed, in a sense. I was in a state of what I guess I would call ego death. Every single place I would look, anicca, impermanent, everything, and I would look within, impermanent. Nothing had any substance to it whatsoever, and it was mildly terrifying, but there was also something very comforting about it. And I don't even know how I could, it was so terribly sad in a very Kerouac sort of way, but it was also so happy, oh gosh. It's hard to describe. I would recommend trying it out and experiencing it. But I was feeling a lot of things. I was very overwhelmed. And afterwards I cried quite a bit. And it's so funny because over the past few months, there have been moments where I'm like, oh, I'm so upset. I want to cry. And when you want to cry, you can never cry. And so in these moments, I was trying to pull myself together so much. And I was just crying, and I was calmly doing it. I was breathing normally, just tears rolling down my face, but, just normally breathing and just kind of minding my own business. But the tears just wouldn't stop. I just couldn't collect myself after that. And I'm grateful because the other people around me were really kind to me. They were if there's anything we can do. But of course that just set me off worse because I was oh, people have been so kind to me and people have been so good to me. And I don't know if I necessarily deserve that. I guess I do, or I don't know. But it made me recognize you get back what you put out. And that, and so that made me feel kind of better about myself, which made me see all this beauty in myself, and that made me cry even more yeah, I don't know. A lot of feelings. A lot of feelings. Very overwhelming, but all of this stuff just spontaneously rose to the surface and just totally is powerful. It's just very powerful. What I think a part of it is also like I think I let out a lot of the stuff that had built up, and I think that's important. A lot of these retreats, I pretty much always cry at least sometime or another on a retreat, because you've lived your life in this one way and you've totally forgotten about what's going on here. And then you come to the retreat and you remember, and it's like you're crying on behalf of the past few months. You're letting out all of that forgetting because now you've remembered. And it's a really powerful thing, and that's just one of many feelings on a Vipassana retreat. Might as well hold up a billboard. I'm not trying to advertise here, but that's a very real part of my experience. Anyway, from day 5 onward, I was just full of joy and peace. It's like because I had remembered, and the work had so much meaning, and it was great because the routine sets in, everything becomes easy and fun, and so I began to meditate, cleaning the pots and pans. Like, oh, this pan is awfully dirty today, and then I would examine my body. Oh, there's a sensation over here. Let's clean it all. Cleaning yourself becomes the cleaning of the pans, and the cleaning of the pans becomes the cleaning of yourself. There's this unity in what you're doing. I mentioned that quote before, that the kitchen is sacred and you can taste the love. And so it makes me think of a couple different things. I mean, the first thing is, nothing is just a means to an end. The volition with which we do everything is so important. And so the kitchen itself is sacred. And the volition is important because you can taste the love. Like, literally, how you do everything that you do really does matter. And I think of all the kitchens and all the houses and apartments and all the places across America and the world, and I think of all the people just day in, day out, they cook this and that, maybe just for themselves, maybe for others. And I just want their volitions to be pure. I want their intentions to be pure. I think of my mom and all the meals that she has cooked me, and all the meals that she continues to cook for my dad, and because I've moved out. I mean, now I've moved back in, but briefly, just for a little while. But it matters how you approach that, and so I want her to be full of love as she's cooking, and I want the people that she cooks for to taste the love, because it matters. It all matters. These actions of service are just so important. One interesting day was day 7, when we were just a little bit behind on lunch. One guy had taken a break who had this one job, and no one else really knew how to do his job. And so I finished my job just a tiny bit before lunch began. So lunch begins at 11, and I finished at maybe 10:45. And so I asked the kitchen manager, like, hey, like, this was a kind of a long morning for me. Can I take just a 5-10 minute break? Because my body is tired. I mentioned before how tired your body is really affects the equanimity that you approach the work with. And so he was like, well, we need all these things to be done. Like, are you sure you need it? And I was like, no, I'll help. I said, no, I'll work. And in retrospect, I should have said, yeah, I did need that break, because I started generating a lot of negativity. I was like pretty agitated, and I was like, whew. And so, it wasn't just me too. Like, a couple of the other people working, we were all a little behind, and tensions kind of rose in the kitchen, mostly just within ourselves. It's not between people as much. But on day 7, we served lunch at maybe like 10:04, 10:05 instead of 11:04 or 11:05 instead of at 11 o'clock sharp. Hopefully the students hopefully we didn't ruin the course for the students by serving lunch 5 minutes late. But, that was interesting. But in that trying to work when I needed a break, I noticed myself start to generate negativity again, and so that was really frustrating. I was doing my best to remain equanimous and remain aware, but the bottom line was I was tired, and like I needed a break. So as soon as I could take one, we ate lunch, and then I just excused myself and laid down for maybe like 5-10 minutes. And I noticed, my eyes are closed, and I'm like, my whole body is vibrating. I'm so agitated. And so that's not how you want to be doing this work. And so it was good that I got a chance to lie down. Within about 10 minutes, I had calmed down, and, we finished the lunch. One of the other people in the kitchen got in a small argument with the kitchen manager as that was occurring. And so in retrospect, I think to myself about this, and it's like, they were arguing right as the tension was occurring. They were agitated themselves and like arguing. And that doesn't strike me as a good idea, because you need to let the agitation fall. You need to calm yourself down before you can have an objective, productive argument. You can't just be like, I'm angry and the other person's angry, and when you come together, you're not going to find an agreement, because you're just going to get more angry. You're going to get more sure of yourself. You're not going to dissolve your ego, but much the opposite. So I'm glad that I excused myself and like kind of calmed down a bit. And so later on, it's funny. The kitchen manager was a man, and so we were in the same room because all the male servers are together. And at the end of the night, he asked me, "Did you feel tensions this afternoon?" And I said, "Yes." and everyone laughed, because I guess because maybe they expected me to say more than just yes, I did. But he asked me a couple questions, and I suggested, you should maybe let things kind of calm down before trying to talk about them, so that you can have a productive thing. And that's kind of how I live my life, I think, and it's not necessarily the way to do it, because some people are able to remain very objective and very detached and non-reactive despite all of this agitation and anger being there. I'm almost exactly the opposite. Like when I'm angry, and you probably aren't going to make any progress with that until I'm done being angry. So the best thing for me to do is just like walk it off, lie down, and that goes for all emotions, not just anger. I'm not a very angry person. So it's interesting to observe kind of the different kinds of people. And I mentioned this before, but you generate a lot of compassion when you resolve these tensions. You generate probably more compassion that way than if they had not risen in the first place. And so that's good, in that sense. These tensions are really good. You get to work on being better that way. I don't know if these two things are worth mentioning. I'll just mention them. So I would work all day, and by the end of the night I'd be pretty tired, and so that's when you practice metta, is the last thing in the day. And for metta, you really need to relax a lot. To practice compassion and kindness and love, you really need to relax deeply, and the meditation itself is like just relaxing deeper and deeper and deeper until like you literally are just like in a pillow of fluffy love. But I would notice I would be pretty tired at the end of the day, and so my body would reflect that. I wouldn't be able to relax as much. There would be pains in my shoulder, especially. The shoulder has always been my right shoulder has always held a lot of pain for me on these meditation retreats. I don't know what's hidden there. I've learned a lot from my shoulder, though. But anyway, tangent. But I had a question for the teacher. I asked him, like, hey, like, I'm kind of uncomfortable in the evening sometimes when we practice metta. How do you recommend I get more comfortable? And he said, basically, it's up to you how you want to sit. You can sit however you want to get comfortable. And I told him, well, even if I sit in like the most comfortable position, sometimes there's still pain from just the meditation. These things arising. And he said, well, in that case, just try your best. And so that was good to hear because it cleared up a lot of questions in my head. Because, I should mention, you're not supposed to practice metta if you're feeling any pain whatsoever. But he said basically that it's okay. It's a different kind of pain. You know, it's not the very subtle levels of the mind being like freaked out, but it's rather just like a physical thing. So, and then the other question I asked the teacher, on day 9, there's these instructions. Day 9 is the last day of serious work for the students, because day 10 is metta day when they can speak to each other. So day 9 is the last day of silence when they can work very hard. And so in the evening on day 8, the teachers were like, oh, you guys should try to get to the instructions tomorrow. And so I'm thinking to myself, the instructions on day 9 are how to dissolve your mental and physical structure, essentially. It's like, well, it's kind of, if your conditions are right, this is how you do it. And I'm thinking to myself, my conditions are not right for this. My meditation wasn't nearly as deep. And typically for servers, that's common. The meditation won't run as deep because you're talking to everyone. You're not just meditating all day. You're engaged. You're not quite as focused. You're still very focused, I would say, but you're not quite as focused. And so they're like, no, you should go to this. And I'm like, what is the point? But then I went to them anyway because I figured, these people know what they're talking about. And so, I start kind of trying to dissolve my body, and it was good. I mean, I didn't totally dissolve the mental and physical structure, but I got a lot further than I thought I would, and so I was pleased with that. I have a lot of in the past I've gotten kind of frustrated at myself for not being like better at meditation, which sounds so stupid, right? Because how good you are at meditation is really just a measure of how much equanimity you feel, how non-reactive you are. And so by pushing yourself to like be better, you're just reacting and making it worse for yourself. So this was a really nice course because I wasn't pushing myself to like, I wasn't angry at myself for not being able to dissolve my body, for example, and my ego. And that actually let me progress a lot further. And so in the afternoon on day 9, I was like, like, screw it. My meditations have been really good in the afternoon. I'm going to try to meditate for longer than I usually have, than I ever have. And so I began sitting before the group sit. The group sits at 2:30 to 3:30. I began sitting at like 2:10. And so the idea is you don't want to break posture. You don't want to move at all. You don't want to adjust, because all this pain tends to arise in meditation, and you just want to sit through it without reacting. And so the longer you sit, generally, the more pain you're in. But I was pushing myself like, hey, let's try to do this for maybe 80 minutes. Let's see if I can do that. And so I did. I sat for about 85 minutes, which without breaking posture or anything, which I think is the longest sit I've ever had. And the most beautiful thing about it, though, is when it was over, I just popped up. I was light as a feather, and I walked out of the room. A lot of the time after you've sat cross-legged for, 60 minutes even, and all this pain arises, you need a second to recover. Your ankles hurt and your legs hurt and stuff. You can't just walk immediately. But there was none of that. I was light as a feather. I just popped up. There we go. There was not too much pain at the end. Okay, I'm seeing 10% battery remaining. So I'm going to get as far as I can. Maybe I'll get through this. Only a few more pages. But yeah, and that was a really good meditation though, and I'm very pleased that was able to happen. And the lovely thing is, if it didn't happen, I would be just as pleased. When I would reach pain in my meditation, I would just say to myself, equanimity, and keep meditating. Equanimity. A lot of this meditation is a don't rock the boat sort of thing. It's like occasionally, because you don't want to agitate any more than you are already agitated. You don't want to react to the agitation because it'll just agitate you more. And so this meditation is really fantastic when your mind is totally still, 100% still. And it's a beautiful meditation when that happens, and that's sort of what you practice. And so occasionally, my posture would get really like messed up, because, well, it's like don't rock the boat. So like your thoughts are going, but you don't want to interact with them. These sensations are going, maybe pain, maybe like heat, but you don't want to react to them. And occasionally my posture would be so bad. Like I'd be meditating, and like over time, I literally would find myself like this, and it hurts so much. But if I like popped back up, it would distract me, because the motion distracts. And over time, even if I did pop up, I would slowly, make my way back. So I just decided, okay, I'm just gonna meditate like this, okay. And I was better off that way too. I asked the teacher about that one as well, because I was like, is it okay to? But he was like, yeah, that's all good. Okay, I'm gonna go through the rest of this pretty quick. Day 10 is Metta Day, which is when the silence breaks for the students. Someone, I can't remember if I'm making this up or not, but somebody I believe once told me that Day 10 is for the servers, because you hear all these students so happy and so, when the students come out of silence after 9 days of serious meditation, they are very happy to talk to people. And they're very loving towards each other too, is the thing. It's like this huge stress ball just explodes, and everyone is so happy. And so I think I remember someone saying that is actually for the servers, because the servers spent those 9 days working themselves to produce this moment. And now this moment is come, and all these people are so happy, and you can see the fruits of your efforts. All these people so happy because you were able to help make this possible. And it does feel really good. You get a lot of, it makes me happy to think about it. But it's not what I thought it would be. I kind of thought I would be overwhelmed, And I'm glad that I'm not, because if I was overwhelmed, I think I would have missed the point, It's a side note, but when I get overwhelmed, it's all these strong emotions and strong reactions. And so joy does not have to be a strong reaction. In fact, it's probably even better when it's not. It's just a consistent feeling of like, this is good, and that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm really grateful for that. So I thought it would be overwhelming, but it kind of wasn't. I just feel really good. One of the cool things about Day 10 was they're building a new building at this meditation center, which is a very small, fledgling, slowly growing, very new meditation center. And they're building this new building, and so they gave us a tour of it, and it's almost done. And I'm walking through and just seeing all the rooms, and it made me so happy, because it's like I thought of all the people who would come to this place, who would receive the teaching, and who would grow so much, and who would come out of so much misery, and it's just it makes me so happy to think about that, like other people are gonna be better off, and I'm happy about it. And that's a good feeling. That's a really good feeling. And so seeing the actual place where it's gonna happen made me feel that quite nice deep feeling. It's funny, on Day 10 they asked for volunteers to speak at the student meeting, like, here are some servers from this course, here's what they have to say. And so I volunteered. I told them, like, oh, it was a pleasure to serve and stuff. I asked if they liked the food. They really liked the food. But I suggested, like, if you guys are interested in serving, here's what you should do, because that's how I got here. I told them the story I mentioned before about, like, cleaning toilets and feeling so happy about it. And everyone laughed and stuff. And it was really interesting. After I had talked for, like, maybe 5 minutes, I was, like, very, like, whoa. I was like, shaking. And thankfully I was excused, but like standing in front of people, I don't usually have any problem with public speaking. I mean, here I am, right? But standing in front of all these students and like being a face for them was really intense, especially after 10 days of working for them silently in the background. It's like, here's what you can do. And of course, I didn't want to take any credit for anything, because that's not the point. I just wanted to say, like, it's been a pleasure, and, like, here is what you can do to feel that same joy. And so I told them to, volunteer in the kitchen and so on and so forth. I'm going to talk very briefly about what I learned, and then the future. Hopefully my battery doesn't die in the next, 10 to 15 minutes. But yeah, so what I learned. So serving again, it's really great for applying practice in daily life. And it feels so good. It feels so good to meditate and have a meditation practice that purifies you after you go through all this stuff every day. And that's the point. That is why you do this. You get in a routine of, like, building up crap in your mind, and then at the end of the day, relax, move on, new day. Nothing is so harsh, or you're not so attached to anything that you carry it with you, because then you know that you're going to just create suffering for yourself. And so that's why it feels so good to just move on every single day. And so that's what you're practicing as a server. Now, meditation practice is always really strong right after you get off a retreat. It is certain to weaken in the months to come. And, I anticipate that, but that's, I'm okay with that. I think I've grown and still learned a lot that will stay with me. Whether my practice is strong or not, that's not really a concern. Of course, I want it to be strong, and I'm going to keep practicing, but, whatever happens is fine. I experienced some really good loving-kindness practice on this course, which I had not really experienced before. Before, I overthought it a lot, so the chant is like, may I be happy, may these people be happy, and so on and so forth. And I'm always thinking to myself, should I be repeating this in my head, or should I just, listen to it? And overthinking it in that sense, you just totally miss the point. The point is to just relax. It doesn't really matter what you do. I guess you probably don't need to repeat it in your head, but it doesn't matter, though. The point is to just relax into this kind of cushion of love, and that produces the love inside yourself, and then it echoes out. And so I generated so much compassion on this retreat, and that makes me very happy. I mentioned that everything was really clear for what we were to do, and so work is really easy when you know exactly what to do, and then you can just do it. And I enjoy that. It becomes very meditative that way. So that's something for me to keep in mind in the future. Is when you know what to do, work is easy. It's when you don't know what to do when work gets kind of interesting. I knew that I was going to work very hard, because on meditation retreats, that's what I do. But no, seriously though, you get out what you put in, and so once you recognize that, it's easy to work hard. So that was good to kind of revisit though, and acknowledge in myself that, I'm willing to work really hard, especially on these retreats. So, I only mention it because it kind of brought something out of me that I hadn't necessarily, I don't know. Part of me thinks I'm kind of lazy sometimes, but I don't know. But that brings me to the next point, which is that we tend to respond negatively to others when they show us something that we don't really like about ourselves, or that we don't want to acknowledge about ourselves. So one of these guys that I was working alongside was a pretty lazy guy, and I responded to that. It built up tension in myself that I didn't really need. So, I'd be like, oh, Sam, sorry, I said his name. I'm going to say Jack. Jack is taking a nap again, oh, well, this guy. But of course, the only reason I'm getting agitated about that is because I'm thinking to myself, either I want a nap, or I'm working so hard and this guy's not, or, I'm kind of lazy, if he's being lazy, I'm upset about it because I'm actually kind of lazy myself. The same guy also volunteered to speak to the students at the end of the course, and he was like, yeah, I cooked all the entrees. And I'm like, that is such a misrepresentation of the truth. I'm thinking to myself, you were one of the people who put together this whole operation. He was not the only cook by a long shot. And here he is standing in front of all the students and kind of taking all the credit. And I'm like, like, are you kidding me? But then, I've kind of realized, like, well, maybe I just want some credit too, and also this person, he's not going to be better off for receiving anybody's credit or for saying this. If anything, he's going to hurt himself by wanting that credit. And so that just, again, turns that negative feeling, it turns it into compassion. And so I just have compassion for him. The next few points, hang on, let me see if I can check my battery somehow. Let's see if this works. Okay, I think we have enough. I'm gonna go for it. All right, we're on the topic of things that I've learned, and I'm just gonna be totally honest. I think one of the things that I've begun to recognize recently is, for a large portion of my life, I've just been kind of chasing girls in some way or another, and that's one thing that I kind of sort of start to realize and work with on this past course, and I should be more specific, I guess. It's not even like a necessarily like a lustful thing, but it's like maybe just like not wanting to be alone or lonely or something. And I've grown a lot on these feelings in the past, and grown in a good way, that is. Yeah, let me stick with my notes. Well, so one point to make is that the Buddha, there's kind of two kinds of like enlightened people. There's an arahat, which is a noble person, a saintly person, and then there's a non-returner. And so a non-returner is kind of the higher of the two. And the difference between the two is that the non-returner has no kind of like sexual desire. And so has truly purified every single thing in the mind. And so the Buddha said that the sexual desire is the last thing to be purified, and it's what separates just a noble person from like the highest noble person. You can still be an enlightened person with this, but anyway. And so a non-returner, the difference is a non-returner does not reincarnate. They've released themselves from every single habit of mind and body that was in this and all previous lifetimes, and then they do not reincarnate. They live in peace forever. And okay, so my note, I'm just gonna read my notes. So it wasn't even really lust that I was feeling, but I did notice myself develop attraction towards some of the one particular female server. And so I know this in the back of my head. I'm like, Andrew, don't do this. You're just gonna hurt yourself if you are attracted to this person and develop attachment and stuff, develop craving. You go on a meditation retreat to erase craving and to erase attachment and that sort of thing. And so to work with it, I just wouldn't even let myself like look at her, because I knew if I looked at her, I'd be like, oh, she's so beautiful, like, oh. There was a bit of, there were some interesting things arising in my meditation regarding some past experiences. And, it's important to remember, like, everyone's human, like I'm human. It's important to recognize that you are human and that everyone else is human. And so with that in mind, you just accept that these things are there and you continue to meditate. It's not different than any other kind of distraction. And eventually that did kind of pass, those strong feelings in meditation, which I'm grateful for. I in a sense, I passed the test, because the test is, strong feeling arises and you don't react to it. That's the test. If you don't react, the strong feeling passes. And so over the 10 days, these things became less and less and less, and now I don't even really think about them, which is really nice. It's quite cool. And, kind of thinking about the future, I think that's one of the next steps of lifestyle for me. I mentioned the 5 precepts before. I'm pretty good on all the precepts, And I've recently, in the past past 2 years, I've made a very big commitment to sobriety. I think the next thing that I need to commit to is just like very healthy relationships, and not just chasing girls all the time. Hey, it's honest, I guess. But we'll see how it goes. Who knows? But again, I think the point is, a lot of growth comes out of taking that commitment. You know, it's not meant to like condemn past actions of myself, and it's not to even like suppress any feelings. It's just to observe and see what happens if I try to be the healthiest version of myself, you know? And if things get in the way, then I just observe. And if things don't get in the way, that's great too. I'll just observe. But it's all about that growth, though, into being the healthiest person that you can be. Anyway, very briefly, some of the people on the retreat, you're bound to like some people more than others, and so some of the people I was very friendly with, and really, really enjoyed. The other dishwasher was a guy named Jacob, and so he was a really chill guy, and so we talked a lot about art and stuff. Sheetal was one of the women who would do a lot of the cooking and chopping and stuff, and she was great too. I noticed she had a very similar energy to me, which I appreciated. I think she appreciated it in me too. I think we reacted similarly to a lot of the same situations, and like we thought in similar ways, and so it was nice to relate to her. And then this other guy, Jason. So Jason was the course manager, and he was just such a sweet guy. He had been a long-term server at Dhamma Kunja in Washington, and a long-term server is someone who lives at the center and serves. I think he had been there for maybe like 2 years, maybe even more than that. But he was just the sweetest guy, and we always talked a lot. We've read a lot of the same books, and he actually used to nerd out on nuclear stuff, which, that's my area of expertise, and so we talked a lot about that, and all sorts of cool stuff. And, I mention these people because I draw a lot of inspiration from them, and Jason especially, made me see a very good example of Sangha, a very noble person to live and work alongside. And so he really inspired me a lot, and so I'll probably keep in touch with all of them. And that brings me to the future, which will conclude this talk. And that's, the future is always indefinite, and I never would have thought about this had I not met Jason or some of these other people, but I'm considering something like being a long-term server, because, let me put it this way, what I know is, over time, being in the world and all that stuff, the really blissful feelings that are produced on a meditation retreat like this, they'll slowly fade, and they'll slowly decline, until eventually I go on another retreat. And then they'll slowly fade, and slowly, they'll be really strong, and then they'll slowly decline, and then they'll be really strong again, and really decline. And part of me thinks, why leave then? Why not devote myself to that kind of holy lifestyle? And it's, I haven't figured it out yet, because part of me wants to, but part of me thinks about all of the things that I would be missing, and it's hard. It's hard to tell what I'm gonna do. Part of me thinks maybe I should just find a job. I was already only looking for maybe year-long positions anyway, though, because I want to move to India in a year. That's a whole other can of worms, so I'm not going to talk about that right now. But so I'm kind of looking for a year-long thing, and long-term service could be potentially a very good thing. I was very impressed with the center, so I would consider even being a long-term server there. I think it would be cool, because they're building these new buildings, and the first one will be ready, they said, probably around May. And it would be really incredible, I bet, to help put that building together, and then sit a course in it when it's done. You know, it's like experiencing the fruits of my own efforts, seeing others experience the fruits of my own efforts. I can already imagine how incredibly good that would feel, and it's an idea. It's an idea. Time will tell, essentially, if anything else is worth doing. But, you know, it's important to remember that, like, you gain a lot on meditation retreats and practice and stuff. And if you want to give it back to the world, probably the most effective way is to just be in the world, and just be a happy person living a normal life, so that others become inspired and they say, hey, why are you so happy? And you say, oh, I'm a Vipassana meditator. And then next thing you know, they're doing the same thing. So I don't want to be reclusive, but I do want to help others and inspire them to practice. And yeah, so we'll see. Nakama parami is renunciation. So it's like, do I want to renounce the material life altogether, or I don't know. I don't know. I have a lot of questions. Time will tell. But for now, I'm just very happy and very grateful. For anyone interested in serving, I just would love to make very clear, like, it's so full of joy, and anyone that's not interested in serving too, this action is so full of joy, and so full of love. You know, I can get into a mindset when I meditate that the harder I try, the further I'll go. And to a large degree, that's true. But what it can do is almost be like can lead to almost a masochism, I guess would be the word. Like, all these negative, strong pains arise, and you just want more. You know, you want more pain to deal with and more pain to try to work with. Serving is not like that. serving is not at all like that. I'm not saying that's bad too, to want that, because again, you get what you put in, and you know, pushing yourself is a good idea. But serving is different, because you're pushing yourself to love more. You're pushing yourself to help more. You're pushing yourself to do more and to do better. And if you start self-harming or and you start being a masochist, then you're not going to be as effective in helping others. And so, like, there's no pain in the job, is I guess my point. You know, it's all just, the happier I am, the more effective I will be. And knowing that makes you happier, and knowing that makes you more loving and more, you know, and that's kind of the point. And it's so beautiful to think about, and to live ehipassiko, see for yourself, try it out. Yeah. So anyway, and the beautiful thing is you're also still working on yourself while you're doing it, because things are trying to get in your way of doing that, and you're not letting them. You're saying, no, I am pure, I am good, and I want my purity and my goodness so that I can serve others. I don't feel anxious about the future, which is good. I'm not really worried about which direction I go in. I know it will be the right direction, so yeah. And I just want to close by saying, you know, this Vipassana technique thing it's given me a lot. You know, it's responsible. It's the source of so much joy for me, and so much peace. And I just want to say I think it's a very legitimate technique, and definitely check it out if you're interested and committed and determined to become a happier person. Again, there's not a person on the planet who would not benefit from this course. Now, you can't serve to start. If you want to go on a course, you have to sit for the 10 days specifically, which is hard, and that scares a lot of people. But I just read the book The Alchemist, and so in The Alchemist, he comes to a place, and he's wondering if he should go forward or not. And one of the reasons he continues to go forward is he can always go back. You know, So if you're thinking about doing this sort of thing, realize that like it's okay to fail, or say you go to a 10-day course and it's really hard and you only manage to stay for like 3 days. Those are a good 3 days. That's progress, So you can always go back to how you are and how you were, and if you find that you'd rather be that. But I think everyone should try to push themselves to see what else is out there.